All right, everybody, what is happening? It is Slippin Jimmy here with you once again for another look ahead show for Outlier. Taking this one here on the road, but I'm ready to go for another one of these. Man, weird week, I would say, in terms of you had some big favorites covering. You had the Bills looking pretty good again, although some of the advanced numbers there would say that Allen has this is probably one of his worst seasons since his, I would say, breakout year in 2020. Then you have games like the Chiefs, which in remarkably, I mean, this is just what the Patriots used to do, during their run. So I guess this is sort of a backhanded compliment. I don't know how they can keep getting away with this, but having two Denver missed field goals, including a 32-yard field goal blocked there at the end. Weird game there. The Commanders and Steelers, also another weird one. You had Russell Wilson being like okay for most of the game, but Jaden Daniels having his worst game, at least efficiency wise, as a pro. So just a number of these games today that were kind of like, I think some things were we could have seen it coming, other things that we maybe didn't. Minnesota, for example, going 0 for 5 in the red zone, yet obviously still winning the game, even with Sam Darnold having 3 turnovers. So, yeah, week 10, just a little bit of a wonky one. I'll have to kind of look and see what the final numbers are in terms of the ATS. I know it's very much of a seesaw season with you've got some weeks with public doing very well, favorites having just incredible weeks. I think there was one week where they were like 13-1. And then you've got other weeks where it has not been that at all. It's been very much on the sharp side, very much on underdogs. So we'll see what the impact here is going to be for those week 11 lines. If you haven't joined us before on our show, here's how it works. We're going to go through the games for the upcoming week. And if the team is playing right now on Sunday Night Football, like the Texans and the Lions, or on Monday night, like the Rams and the Dolphins, we're going to skip past those lines because, to be honest, there could be injuries. What if Puka Nacua goes down again? What if Matt Stafford tears an ACL? Who knows? Hopefully that doesn't happen. But we tend to just want to focus on the games that we can at least get some actual lines and have information for, right? So with that, we are going to get started here. So I'm going to present my screen. If you guys got comments, please feel free to put them here in the chat. But with that, I am going to go out of this and go into Outlier to start looking ahead at week 11. So starting with Thursday night, another good Thursday night game. I think we've had, this is like what, 3 or 4 now that we've had that have been pretty good so far this season. You had arguably the best game of the year with the Ravens and the Bengals on Thursday night. That was spectacular. And we got another good one with the Commanders and the Eagles. Eagles take care of business. I talked a little bit about how Washington, things really didn't necessarily go their way. Probably were the better team today, but they've had obviously some games where they were maybe not so much the better team. One on the Hail Mary, for example, and they still ended up winning. So we're taking a look here at some of the numbers. You can see that getting Washington at +3.5. I did see that was initially EV. I mean, Washington's been great at covering the spread. No surprise because this has been a team that started the season with very low expectations. So you're going to see these, kind of projected underachievers that are overperformers. Those are typically teams that are going to obviously do very well against the spread because they were power rated as if they were, several points below what a market average would be. So in this case, you've got Washington. They are at this point, they are 8-2 against the spread this season. Philadelphia is looks like 6-3 against the spread, and 3.5 to me. I mean, we take a look here on Penny. I was going to say, I think that this probably should be 3. The Commanders are going to absolutely be able to move the ball. First time these guys, by the way, have met this season. 49.5 does seem seem right here. No major injuries that we should know about. I'm just taking a look here at Bookmaker. You can see that Washington is also 3.5 on here. And if we take a look at Bet Online, you've got a little bit of some juice there towards Washington. So starting to see a little bit of some movement in the Commanders' direction. I would definitely say if we're looking at this game for the Thursday night, I would be eyeing that 3.5. I would also just be curious. I mean, the total here is at 49.5. Looks like Pinnacle is aligned there, and 49 is actually what we're seeing on Bet Online. So that probably, like I said, that number kind of seems right to me. I'm going to put this one here in the bet slip, though, because I just think that Washington does have some advantages here, at least being able to move the ball. I'm not necessarily sure if you kind of go back and look at the Eagles' schedule. Eagles have been playing. They've been at least not allowing a ton of points of late. But if we go and see, so it's where are okay. So here's the Eagles here. And if we want to go just to 2024, yeah, so we had a couple of good very bad game against Tampa Bay, decent game against Cleveland, obviously great game against the Giants, 17 points to Cincinnati. That's pretty good as well. But 23 to Jacksonville, that was a bit of an eyebrow raiser. 6 to Dallas today. So, I mean, the best indicator I can say in terms of what we should be looking at that Eagles defense would be that Cincinnati game, which is that team has obviously been playing extremely well offensively outside of that. So that is interesting to me. Again, I would look to see if there is some more advantages there on the Commander side, but getting the Philadelphia to cover more, basically have to cover by a touchdown. Again, that's the whole thing with the key number at 3. If you're getting them at 3 or under, you only really need a field goal to be inside the line. If you've got anything above that, you're going to need most likely a touchdown to be able to get over that. So for me, Washington 3.5 would be something that I would be eyeing on, and I do think that is specifically a number that you may not be getting for much longer. So that's one of the whole points of doing this show, right? Is to look for numbers that we don't think we're necessarily going to be alive for very long, and this is certainly one that fits in that camp. Packers and the Bears. Packers, man, Chicago is I mean, if you're thinking about old school sort of sharp betting rules, division games that especially are later in the season, I don't care how bad or how good one team is, anything under 7, or really anything under 6, I'm going to be usually betting, or sorry, over 6. I'm going to be usually betting the dog in that scenario. You had a great example of that today with Denver. You had another great example of that with the Bengals on Thursday, right? Those were easy inside the number, and those were both teams that were playing on the road. So in this case, we've got Chicago that is 6.5 at home to Green Bay. So old school sharp betting principle would tell me Chicago is probably a bet at 6.5 here. However, I just am not sure in this case if Chicago's offense is actually going to be able to score enough points. You take a look kind of at their team total that we've seen in the last 3 weeks. You're seeing it 3, 9, 15. So an average of 9 points a game in the last 3 weeks. Caleb Williams has looked awful. He was outplayed by Drake May, who wasn't really even particularly that great today. And the calls for Shane Waldron's head are going to be very loud coming into this week. I know that this line for the money line is EV. Tough for me to really get there yet with the Bears. And we take a quick look as we typically do, and you'll see that, yeah, not a lot of appetite here for this one so far. Bears even at 7 on Bookmaker. So, and it is trending though a little bit closer towards the 6 on Bet Online. So nothing here for me. If you're going to be playing a side, I'm going to probably, say that most likely, if you really like the Packers, -6.5 at even money, not terrible. I don't know if you're going to get that price the rest of the week. If you do like the Bears, I mean, look again, you got the Bengals 6.5 up until basically game time. I played that Thursday morning, which is typically not something I will do with spreads, playing it on the day of, but sometimes you just may not see a lot of movement. I don't know if we will see that. And again, you have to look at what are the Packers. I mean, Packers score a ton of points. Bears really can't score at all. And in those circumstances, you tend to have some more of those outcomes that can be more towards the tail, which is including that Green Bay could, uh, you know, be. I would even almost be looking for an alt spread potentially on Green Bay there. So pass for me, but that would be kind of my general thoughts on that game. Dolphins and Raiders. Going to skip that. Obviously, we got to wait and see what happens with the game tomorrow with the Dolphins. So we will move past that one and go on to the Browns and the newly 3-7 Saints. What a weird one today. If you go look at one of the kind of one of the readings that I try to do every week is Kevin Cole. He was former head of data and analytics at PFF. He's got a great Substack called Unexpected Points. He goes through all the games every week to kind of basically say like, all right, here was the final score. What actually, based on offensive and defensive efficiency, which team was actually better in this game? And in this game today, it's the Saints, which they did end that 7-game losing streak. Atlanta was significantly better by a lot of efficiency metrics. So that might throw you off the scent here. Jameis Winston revenge game also. I'm going to take a look here just at the EV. So we are seeing a little bit of a more favorable line here for the Browns. So -111. That's a cheap +2.5. And I tend to agree with this as well. +2.5 here, and this is 1.5 on Bet Online. So again, Browns, look, they're going to be a roller coaster with Jameis. You're going to have some weeks where it is just going to be a total disaster, like the week against the Chargers, even though in that game they actually weirdly were a little bit closer than the final score indicated. But I just am not buying anything of the Saints team. They got their win. With their interim new coach, they had hit rock bottom. There was some motivation, I'm sure, from the players and folks in the locker room there. But I think that was, again, Saints lose this game today. If this game plays out a little bit more than, what we would have seen from some of the advanced stuff, we might be looking at this as more of like a 1.5 or pick 'em. So I think you're getting a little bit of value there on Cleveland. And I honestly don't even really hate the money line at this either, but -105 is still pretty cheap. 43.5, excuse me, as your total for this one. And yeah, I was gonna say I would tend to favor a little bit of the over, but you can see there's a little bit of some market disagreement there from Bet Online, Bookmaker, and Pinnacle. Which, by the way, those are the books that I will typically go and look at in terms of, some general sort of market movers that will kind of indicate where we might be seeing some action go to. But obviously, I will wait to see what is happening at Circa, right? What happens at potentially some of the exchanges. So those are just the couple, but obviously that's not a Bible per se of going into just those three to check against. Detroit and Jacksonville. I'm assuming this line is assuming that Lawrence is not playing in this game. If Lawrence is not playing in this game, I actually think that this should be bigger. But I'm going to pass this because we got to wait to see if there are any major injuries from tonight's game. The Rams also, again, playing tomorrow, playing the Patriots. This is a 1 o'clock game. Rams are also playing on a short week, and Patriots have been a little frisky. So 5.5 probably also seems kind of right to me, but we'll move past that and go on to. I'd say if we scroll down real quick, I think this has got to be no. Okay, all right, never mind. It's Chiefs Bills. Man, what a great couple of games though for next Sunday with Baltimore and Pittsburgh as your 1 o'clock sort of marquee matchup. Pittsburgh at +3. So under 47.5, I 100% agree with that. This is a smash to me. So Wilson today, again, EPA per play, I think he was like 0.32 per play. So pretty good. He like by EPA standard metrics, he's been pretty good. His completion percentage, not so good. He was like 14 of 28. His CPOE completion percentage over expectation was negative today. Those are usually a little bit more indicators of something that could be or not sustainable. But to me, like you already seeing this at Pinnacle, that's 47.5. It's 46 at Pinnacle. 1.5 is not a small difference. Now, interesting that Bookmaker is still hanging that 47.5 there and 47.5 at Bet Online. So I will take note of that. Those two books are not quite off even the 47.5. There is some a little bit of juice there towards that under on Bet Online. I just also just from a handicapping perspective would agree that 47.5 is going to be pretty high total for again a Steelers team that I mean how many times have they been under this? So 45 today, yeah, that but 55 again, like that was Washington. And interesting, oh, good insight there. 6 of the last 9 against bottom 10 scoring defenses. That's got to go back to last year, though, which would mean Steelers were offensively, Steelers are definitely better. I'm still not necessarily willing to fully buy into that, but love that one at under 47.5. All right, just double checking here. Let's see if anybody had entered the comments. All good. Let's keep moving along as we scroll down here to the Vikings and Titans. I think that Vikings -6.5 is makes sense, I guess. People are going to be, I'm sure, pissed that the Vikings, if you were a Vikings backer today, that game was, I believe, I think it closed 6.5, maybe even higher. And there was no reason the Vikings shouldn't have covered that game today. So 6.5 probably seems about right to me. The under here, I would also say, though, is worth a look. You're seeing -120. That is at 40 on both Bookmaker and Pinnacle, and it is at 40 -110 on Bet Online. So I'll put this in for now. I do kind of like that under there. And I think this is less betting against Minnesota's on the offense. And again, we only saw 12 points, but that expectation should have been higher today. Other than the 3 Darnold turnovers, I just don't see Tennessee scoring a lot of points, regardless in this game. So 40.5, I would definitely be interested in that under. Colts and Jets. This is definitely the dumpster fire game of the week because of what has been happening with both of these teams. You've got the Colts on one hand that benched their 4th overall draft pick, took a lot of heat for it. I personally was somebody that had said, I don't hate it. I think that there is development that a quarterback can have by sitting on the bench. We've done that for decades, and there have been a lot of examples where that has worked. Didn't necessarily agree with them announcing Joe Flacco as your rest of season starter, and that has now blown up already in their face. Colts are 4-6. I by math figured out that they're basically going to have to go 6-1 down the stretch to make the playoffs. Jets, I mean, forget it. They're done. Today was, I mean, this was essentially their Rubicon. They were going to have to cross it and beat Arizona today to continue uh, staying on life support. That's over. Uh, how motivated will this team be for that game? Just for that alone, I think you have to look at Indy at +3 in that spot. If we take a look at this, they are +101 on Pinnacle, so market would at least initially disagree with me there. And I'm seeing +3, 105, a little bit more towards the Jets. So maybe nothing to do on this one. We see the total at 44, and I'm seeing 44 and a half, a little bit higher, 45, and a 45. So strictly, if you're looking just for beating the market a little bit here, probably going to play the over of 44. I mean, yeah, that's I guess the Jets, there still is paths for them to still score a decent number of points. And that Colts defense is not very good. But are the Colts going to be able to score a lot of points, right? I mean, um, that 30-20 score was not indicative at all. I mean, that game probably should have ended up being like 30-13. They scored a touchdown with 7 seconds left. So just keep that in mind. This is a pretty interesting game. Man, this is just looking at these three games, fantastic 4 o'clock slot. Usually they put all like one good game and mostly crappy games. Falcons and Broncos, I find very interesting. I think that the Falcons' jujitsu, some of their, well, juju really came to an end today, and not because they actually deserved to win the game today and they lost, but what goes around comes around. This team has been a little bit two-faced all season. I think this is a tough spot coming for them over to Denver in this game. I will take a look here, though. I mean, this is showing we're getting some value here. It's at +1. This is trending most likely towards a pick 'em, as you can see between these. For me, if I were betting this game, regardless of number, I would like Denver. I think Nick has shown at least enough growth. Again, what's this number if the Broncos actually win this game today? I think it's probably 2 at least. And, common opponents, looks like they're 4-4, 3-3 against those common opponents. So nothing really to look at there. What's the total in this game? 43.5. And that's looking like it's a little bit more towards the over. I don't know if I like that either. Probably not a play for me. I think this ultimately, though, is going to land as more closely to a pick 'em. Atlanta's definitely been a little bit more favored by market and by power rating. So if you like Denver, I think you're probably okay waiting. If you like Atlanta, if you like Atlanta, you probably should just go take them now and get the plus money. Just get the plus money and money line. I would just be betting them on the money line. But yeah, for me, I still don't necessarily think Atlanta is like great, and I don't think necessarily Denver is great, but I just like backing them at altitude, and also it's a team that's been still playing fairly well outside of, okay, they got their asses kicked at Baltimore, so throw that one out. But for the most part, this team is going to play, I think, fairly disciplined. Seattle and San Francisco. For me, this would be Niners or nothing. Um, has Seattle, if we go and take a look at, so if you look at when has Seattle played good teams? So they were 1.5, lost. Buffalo 3, lost. Atlanta, okay, that was a good win for them. San Francisco, 3.5, did not cover. Detroit, 4.5, did not cover. Miami, that was without Tua. New England, Jacoby Brissett, and Denver. Denver, when they were at their weakest, which would have been at the very beginning of the season, did not cover. So you look at, I think, any time that they've played basically outside of that Atlanta game, which if you go back in that Atlanta game that was maybe not as, that should have been a little bit closer than that final score indicates, um, and that San Francisco has already what. So San Francisco, this is a good indicator here. San Francisco was -3.5. Okay, this was in October with no CMC. Now they had Ayuk, but no CMC in that game, and yet San Francisco is pretty much relatively healthy, and they are your. It's this is only a 3-point adjustment. After what we've seen from Seattle, I don't think so, in my opinion. I know this is EV on the money line, not really that much EV, and if we take a look at some of the others, 6.5 -110. You're seeing here on Pinnacle. Yeah, this is out to 7 on Bookmaker, and this is already juiced towards the Niners. I love this. 6.5 -105 on ESPN Bet. Um, Shit, that is no brainer for me for the Niners in that spot. All right, we've got a couple more games that we need to cover here. Actually, just two more. With the Texans obviously playing tonight, and so we're going to skip past that through there. So Chiefs and Bills. Oh man, do I want to save this one for last? I guess we'll go into it right now. So at the Bills, uh, Chiefs have, this cannot be right. Oh, they've covered the 1.5, but um, against the spread, only 56% this season. I was like, oh yeah, like of course they've covered 1.5 every game because they've won every game. Bills here, if we take a look, we're seeing they are EV on the money line. So at -125, if you go back and look here, -140 and -2 on Bookmaker, -2 here on Bet Online. So one thing that has been pretty tried and true in the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes era is you want to back Buffalo in regular season against the Chiefs. You want to back Mahomes and the Chiefs in the postseason against Buffalo. So these two teams, they've played each other twice in the postseason. Probably the most memorable postseason game we have had in history in the last, not history, but in the last, like 5 years, the 13-second game in 2022. So that game, you saw the Chiefs obviously win in that game, and then they also won the playoff game with the missed kick this past season. Bills, though, if we go back and look at, so Bills, Chiefs, regular season since 2020. I'm just going to look here on Stat News real quick. Yeah, so Bills are 3-1 in that span. 17-26 was that game in 2020, but they have won 3 straight against this team in the regular season. Now, these were all in Kansas City, so that is that significant? I don't know. They, have won these games close a couple of those times. So with that, I would say Bills probably are a little bit more interesting here at -1.5. -120 is a pretty cheap money line. 45.5, if we're looking at the total. This actually has been bet up to 46. I don't know if I totally agree with that, but it's probably Bills or pass for me here. But again, this is just, yeah. I'll add this here, but I would just say that the Chiefs, in this sense, no major injuries on either of these teams, and you know, thinking about the Bills, they're coming out of that game at Indy, Chiefs at home, tough division game. Yeah, slight edge to the Bills here, I guess. Tough for me though to really like make a definitive, I would say, pick on that game. I do want to quickly, before we get to the Bengals and Chargers, just call out. I forgot that there was a pretty significant injury that I did not mention earlier today, which was it was Tevin Jenkins in the Bears, who is probably their best guard on their offensive line. Keep an eye on his status for this week. If he is not practicing or does not go, that's a real problem. That line is already not good, and that line will be even worse without him playing in that game. So if you see any DNPs, even I would say like Wednesday, especially Thursday, man, go. I Not if you needed a little bit of extra incentive to bet the Packers, that would be kind of my point in that. I don't think it necessarily changes the entire full couple of points or anything, but it for me that's something I'm monitoring. All right, just double check here. Okay, let's go back into the game lines. So last one for Cincinnati and the Chargers. Chargers, well, actually, sorry, Cincinnati getting some value here early on the money line at plus 120. You're seeing them at plus 111 on Pinnacle. We are seeing that line at plus 2.5 on Bookmaker and at plus 2 on Bet Online. Let's go back and look at that spread. I think you're probably getting more. I was going to say more value on the spread. I kind of like Cincinnati in this one. I would agree here with market. You go and you look at the Chargers schedule, and okay, so this defense by DVOA, one of the best rated in the league. Take a look at the sort of let's say I would say like what top 10 offenses. So, and by the way, you see Kansas City, not a top 10 offense. Just want to call that out. Not a top 10 offense this season. And probably if we go, you know what, we'll just do this. So I'll quickly go into FTN. I just want to take a quick look at offensive DVOA. So, of course, I'm saying Kansas City, not top 10 offense, and then here they are, ninth. So I guess I'm going to have to eat my words slightly on that, although that's hard for me to believe. So, okay, so Arizona is 11th and Kansas City is 9th. Kansas City, they give up 17. Arizona, they give up 17. Okay, not terrible. You look at the rest of their games, though, like Vegas, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Denver, New Orleans, Cleveland, Tennessee. This is by far, for me, the best offense that they'll be seeing, even though I see Cincinnati as 10th overall, 5th in the pass. And you look at Cincinnati and what they've been able to score, 34, 41. Okay, Eagles game, not so great. Browns game in division, tough. Giants game, 38, 34, 33, 25. To me, this is just, I think it has to be Bengals, and I would be looking at a Bengals team total over. I don't know if those are in yet. They are not. But this is Bengals or nothing for me in this game. You see that this total is also slightly EV. So a lot of EV on this one here for the Sunday night game, which is also a good game. But I would say this has to be Cincinnati at plus 2.5 is what you'd be looking at. Okay, let's go back and recap what we found here so far on the slate for week 11. So Commanders, if we're just looking at if you want to get some value and where that number could be trending, I would definitely suggest go out and get that Commanders at plus 3.5 right now. That would be yeah, that number is that there's a very good chance that could get down to 3. Packers and Bears, talked about this. I did mention that injury to one of Chicago's best linemen. Nothing for me personally, but I wouldn't be totally shocked if this gets to 7. The question will be how much do we see some of that old school kind of style or principles around division games and, trying to get that number at least below 6. Which again did not happen with the Chiefs and the Broncos today, but Broncos easily covered, as in the Bengals. Raiders and Dolphins, skipping past skip past them. Browns, I think you're getting some great value right now at +2.5. Like I said, I think that New Orleans win was a little fugazi, and I'm still willing to bet on some good Jameis in this spot, coming and playing in a stadium that he practiced and played in for quite a few years, even as a backup. So I think that is worth definitely looking into. I don't know if we're going to see this get to 3, but I would just like, yeah, I don't think you're ever going to see this get to Cleveland +3, but I could see this getting to like Cleveland's +1.5 or +2. Rams and Patriots, yeah, we're skipping past that one, skipping past Jaguars and Lions, but I did say that just think Lions to me are like -12.5. That might still be worth a play right now. I thought the under 47.5, great bet. And you look at these two teams in terms of the history. Have they played? I can't remember the last time they played a game that went over that total. It's got to be a while, and yeah, that under 47.5, definitely a slam there. Some EV on that under 40.5 for Vikings and Titans, as I'd mentioned. Hard to see where Titans are scoring in that one. Vikings have also been kind of struggling on offense. And then Colts and Jets. We took the over 44 as part of tonight's stream. That's largely just because seeing some steam, and that could get to maybe like 44.5 or 45 if you want to get a good number. Falcons and Broncos, I didn't have anything for this one. I just said that for me personally, I think you have to take a hard look at Denver as the side, but I would wait because I think that number will get closer to a pick 'em. Niners, I know there's EV, it's showing EV here, but Niners are for sure for me the side. And like I said, this team closed -3.5 at Seattle just a month ago. Even if you're factoring in only 1.5 for home field, yes, that would put you at 6.5. But we know that Seattle is not as good a team as we did on October 10th. So that would definitely be a play for me with San Francisco. Hesitant, but I will follow market there on Buffalo -120. But again, this is regular season, not postseason. And I think Cincinnati +2.5, great bet at -105. Again, not a number. When you're taking it, especially if I'm seeing EV on some of this stuff, when it's under 3, got to be, I wouldn't be taking this now unless I'm thinking that, if I think that this is going to get to 3, then obviously I'm going to wait. I don't think that Cincinnati +2.5 is going to get to 3, and I think there was the other one up there that I was not going to get to 3 either, which is the Browns. I definitely don't think the Cincinnati one will get up to 3 though. So those are our picks. Yeah, I mean, should be an awesome week of football upcoming here. You just look at that afternoon slate, man. Ravens and Steelers, 1:00. You've got 3 good games, including, game of the year with Chiefs and Bills at 4:25, and then pretty good Sunday night game, Bengals and Chargers. Leave, a pretty terrible game for Monday night with Texans and Cowboys. Don't know how many people outside the state of Texas will really care about that one, but yeah, otherwise, very much looking forward to this week's slate of games. So yeah, with that, I'm going to just stop sharing my screen here. Just want to thank everybody that did join or tuned in for a little bit of this week's show. We'll be back here, same time, same place at 9 p.m. next Sunday to do week 12 of the Lookahead lines. If If you want to chat with me, I'm going to be in the Outlier Discord and the Beat the Line Discord at Slippin Jimmy. You can also find me on Twitter at Dads That Bet. And yeah, good luck, everybody. Good luck with your bets for rest of tonight, tomorrow, and I will see you here next week.